Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm so happy to see people I know and haven't seen for a while, and very happy to meet new faces. In fact, let me switch over here to see if there's more. Yes, wow. I offer my big thank you to the ACI platform group. I appreciate that this allows me to reach a bigger family, and I hope that it goes well for all of us. I was asked by some of the people here to start the entire ACI Foundation curriculum from the beginning. Can someone help Mr. Miguel? Some of those people had actually already completed the last 5 courses, and for some, even the review courses. And they still asked to receive the first 2/3 because they wanted to fill in the details that they actually had already learned in the last 5 courses. So I really admire that. I think for myself, I would have been tempted to say, I don't need those earlier classes. But the earlier classes are so packed with juicy information that you don't, in fact, understand until you get to the end. So then to go back and do them again, it reveals their extraordinary richness. I've been sharing the ACI Foundation courses since the early 2000s. I've lost count at how many times I've gone through them. And every time I do, every class I share, I learn something more. So I commend you all for being here. So I need to know, is there anyone taking this course who has not ever done any of the ACI courses yet? 1, 2. I'm looking at my other page. All I see are closed videos, so I'll stay on this page. So I have at least 2 people who are new. Of those 2 people, do either of you not know what I mean when I say, have you heard the pen thing? Right? Have you ever heard the pen story? Mr. Raymond and the lady in peach color. Okay, so we don't have anyone who is completely new, and that helps me. However, I'm still going to share at least this module as if you've never heard this stuff before. I want to be precise in the words that I share and give the meaning as we need. We will learn a little Tibetan, not in the script because I can't do that, but in the pinyin, because Tibetan is a dying language and our main scriptures are written now in Tibetan. So if somebody doesn't know how to read Tibetan in the world, we will lose access. So to plant the seeds in all of our minds, to still see somebody able to read Tibetan, we'll do a little Tibetan. I apologize that my capacity is in the negative integers for language, but I'll do the best I can to help us plant those seeds. When I start an ACI Foundation course series from the beginning, I like to begin it with this particular practice module called The Source of All My Good, because it gives us an overview of what the ACI coursework has to offer us. It's in a nutshell, what it takes to learn and practice in ways that will help us transform from suffering human being to fully enlightened being in either many, many lifetimes or in this very lifetime, depending on one's own motivation and effort. So I'm assuming that you are here in this class because you feel some level of dissatisfaction with your world, with your experiences, maybe even with yourself, and that somewhere inside you believe that that dissatisfaction is a mistake, and that there must be a way to end it. And I'm hoping that by sharing this particular practice module with you, that you will see the potential that the full ACI series has to offer. And I'm hoping that it will be for you what you are looking for. If you find that it just doesn't resonate, it's okay to say, this is not for me. So don't feel that you're committing yourself to all of the ACI courses by having come to this one. I ask you to come to this one, even if at first it feels like, nah, this is not for me. Please commit to this whole 8 sessions and work with it during this month so that you can give yourself and these teachings the good old college try. And then, if honestly it doesn't fit, fine, right? We've planted seeds and that will be great. If it does fit, then the tradition is you ask for more. So although I've signed on to offer the entire 18 courses and 6 practice modules, I don't assume that we're going to go from one to the next to the next. So be sure to ask each time. I'm not supposed to teach if a person has not asked. And it's not from my side, it's for the students' mind. When we ask for teachings, our head cracks open and I can pour stuff in. If we don't ask, right, it stays closed. So let me give you some background. This course is called the Lam-Rim Practice Module. Lam-Rim meaning steps on the path, but meaning steps on the path from suffering being to totally enlightened being. And the prayer that we will, I see it. I didn't mean for you guys to do that, but thank you. For your own mind, thank you. We're using a series of verses of prayer, the opening lines of which in English is, the source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. So the practice becomes, it gets titled, the source of all my good, because it's the first lines of the teaching. As I say, it outlines in a very short and succinct way all the different things we need to learn and practice in order to transform ourselves and our world completely. How can we do that in 14 or 15 short verses? They're concise. They are packed. Our first time through, we'll understand it on a certain level. Our second time through, deeper. Billionth time through, maybe we'll catch it. That's fine, Lucy, thank you. It was written by a Tibetan monk named Lobsang Drakpa Jetsong Kappa. I'm going to share screen for a minute. I'm going to come back to this, but I just want you to see it. Lobsang Drakpa Jetsong Kappa. His dates are 1357 to 1419. So we learn through the ACI courses that we say as almost like a mantra, our hero Lama Jetsong Kappa 1357 to 1419 for some reason. But it gives you a time frame for his life. He's not ancient, right? Not modern, but okay. He came to be the founder of the Gelugpa tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, one of 4 Tibetan traditions that are still active today. In his time, he found that the teachings in the monastic study were full of contradictions. And he set about to figure them out. So he had access to libraries. He apparently had access to more ancient libraries. He had access to many teachers, and he had access to this brilliant mind that learned how to debate, how to use logic to sort out truth, right? From comparing things. And he became this very prominent, famous, and admired monk and debater as he pulled apart the errors that had grown into the tradition. He wrote many volumes of commentaries on Buddhist sutras, on commentaries of Buddhist sutras, and his writing is difficult and they're long. And fortunately, we have commentaries on commentaries until we can find a teaching that we can understand. And I admire so much Geshe Michael for his brilliant mind, able to check the teachings in multiple languages and then translate them in such a way that they feel modern and culturally relevant. And further, that he shared them in such a way that someone like me can take them and share with others. I am no scholar. I just take what I've been given and send it forth to you. I hope that you will have a sense that you will be able to share with others as well. Doesn't have to be in a formal setting like this. But when I got my start, I would go to some teaching and a friend would say, would you share with me what they taught? And I had taken notes and I just read my notes to the other person and we talked about it. And those seeds landed me here. So please be willing to share with others what you're learning if they're interested, if they ask. So you have to let them know that you're taking classes, you're doing things that have impact you, but you don't sit them down and say, listen to what I have to say, until they ask you. Okay. And then be willing. So the Asian Classics Institute was founded by Geshe Michael Roach back in the mid-1990s because he wanted to share the material he was learning in his monastic training. It's brilliant, really. He started before he had sat for his debates. And how would you plant the seeds for your success in your Geshe degree? You would teach others. So he got permission to teach what he was learning in the monastery, which typically was not taught to the public. But he got permission and people had asked him. And so in the heart of New York City, he started teaching the Asian Classics Institute Foundation courses. He started with ACI 1, not this practice module. And in fact, this practice module, he taught last. When he started teaching, one of the students, John Stillwell, he had been asked by a friend of his from California if they could record the teachings. And of course, Geshe Michael said yes. And that person who had asked to have the recordings made was Venerable Jigme. Yeah. So if she hadn't asked, would John Stillwell have thought to have them recorded? And if they hadn't been recorded, we would be relying on those who had taken the class to share with us. But because they had been recorded, the system evolved to where those recordings and the readings were made available to anyone, but the recordings were on audio tapes. Anybody remember audio tapes? Yeah. So audio tapes. And as a result, ACI has gone on to develop this full up teacher training program, right? Because of that amazingness of having those original recordings. The Geshe degree is the completion of one's Tibetan monastic training. Geshe Michael's monastic training was through the Sarahni Gelugpa Monastery, which is a Tibetan lineage, but it's now housed in India. To earn the Geshe degree, it's a rigorous training, 20 years or so, typically, that requires memorization of the text that they're studying first, and then hours of being taught what the text means, and then hours of debate about the teachings and the text, where they pull apart the text and figure out what it really means to reveal the truth to oneself. And again, it's an amazing system because you're working with someone else to figure out what something really means. And so you're helping each other understand better. And because you're helping somebody else, your own wisdom grows. So as part of our ACI, we will learn the debate. Not until almost the end, unfortunately, because then we miss all that opportunity to try it on for size. It's an amazing method of learning to think clearly. Not every monk completes the monastic scholastic training. In the monastery, they also do daily prayers, daily meditation, daily service. And some of the monks choose for that to be their focus. Others set their goal for the Geshe degree. After the Geshe degree, one has the opportunity to go to the higher teachings, the Tantric College. But the only ones qualified to go to Tantric College are the two highest geshes from each class. So although you can receive initiation and be taught those practices, only a few out of the geshes get trained to be able to pass on the lineage in that way. The ACI courses were developed then with this need for a certain amount of rigorousness and in a way that matches the more Western modern method of learning. Even in my day in California, our education system no longer had the memorization component. No, I think my parents' generation did, but I didn't learn to memorize my text before I, studied. So Geshe does not insist on memorization with a few things we do. But what our system uses is homeworks and quizzes and final exams. And so each of our formal courses has those aspects and a meditation assignment that then guide us in repeating a review of the material at least 3 times, more than 3 times, and gives us a vehicle through which we can more precisely share with others. So a very nice tool in studying your ACI is to share it amongst each other. Do your homeworks together if you want. This module does not have homeworks and quizzes or a final exam. Phew. It has a practice commitment of meditation for 10, 15 minutes a day, please. But if you're going to decide to go on to the course program, homeworks, quizzes, final exam are necessary and need to be completed before the next course starts. Okay, it's not as onerous as it sounds. These courses are to teach us everything we need to know to become enlightened. We don't have to be Tibetan. We don't even have to become Buddhist. We can use these. We can use these methods and principles to apply ourselves to our own religion, our own spiritual practices in a deeper way. So although the words I use are gonna sound like I'm assuming you're a Buddhist, I'm not, right? And don't feel you have to become one. If you are one already, you will learn how to be a better one, right? If you choose you want to commit yourself to being Buddhist, then there's a refuge ceremony that one does, right? Kind of like getting baptized. Mm. Okay, let me give you a little background on me. I met the Buddha Dharma first in 1989 when my Theosophy study group invited Geshe Gelsen from California to come to Arizona to give whatever program he wanted to give over a long weekend. He taught us Tonglen, the practice of Tonglen. That practice is a on and off cushion practice of using our breath and our imagination to take suffering and distress and pain that we see or feel in our world, destroy it, and replace it with happiness and wisdom, love and compassion. And I knew nothing about it, and yet that something really attracted me, and I started doing it like all day long. And while Geshe Gelsen was there, he said, you know, His Holiness the Dalai Lama is coming to Tucson 2 years from now. He's gonna teach Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life Patience chapter. I didn't know who the Dalai Lama was. I didn't know what a Bodhisattva was, but it felt important. So I bought a ticket. And they said, you really need to have some background to benefit from this teaching. It's not just a public talk. So one of the chaplains from the University of Arizona gave a series of beginning Buddhism courses over a course of a year. We met once a week. And I learned about karma and I learned about emptiness. And His Holiness's teachings were profound, and I didn't understand any of it. I practically slept through the whole thing. But my husband and I joined the Bodhisattva Institute, which was a Kagyu group in Tucson. And we went to teachings, traveled to more teachings, and those teachings were given in Tibetan language with translators. So after a number of years, we received a flyer in the mail, Diamond Cutter's Sutra being taught in English. That's what the flyer said, in English, by this guy, Geshe Michael Roach, the first American, to earn the Tibetan Geshe degree. And David and I said, in English, let's go. So it was taught over 2 weekends. And as you know, Geshe Michael's ability to teach in a way that is so understandable to modern times that David and I both felt like, oh, that's what they were trying to teach us, over those 4 or 5 years that we'd already been studying. Oh, and we signed up for more of the ACI coursework right then. Then Geshe Michael and others chose Arizona for their great retreat. And their site was 2 hours from where we lived. And so we started going there on weekends to help support the retreat. We helped build the yurts, etc. And while we were there each weekend, the staff was teaching the practice modules and the review courses in live and in person. So that staff was Venerable Jigme, someone named Venerable Chuki that most of you have not met, amazing woman, and Winston McCullough, who also many have not met, very gifted teachers and amazing practitioners. So David and I plugged away at all 15 of the courses by correspondence. And on weekends, we're taking teachings, live from the group. And as Geshe Michael went into Great Retreat, he said, I intend to teach the next level when I get out, if there's a place for me to do it. So we didn't know what the next level teachings were, but it was that same feeling. We need it, whatever it is, we need it. And so we, felt called to make sure that there would be a place in Arizona where they would get taught totally selfishly, right? We wanted him in Arizona. So as circumstances had it, we ended up quitting our careers and going to the property that is now Diamond Mountain. It was completely undeveloped at that time, and they needed some people over there to help build a temple, build some places to live, etc. So we signed up just to be worker bees. And as it turned out, the administrators of Diamond Mountain were called to leave just about the time we were getting there full time. And so 4 or 5 people's worth of work landed in our laps just because we were there, not because we had any kind of capability. And it's like, okay, we'll do our best. And with the help of others, of course, Diamond Mountain grew, the Great Retreat Valley got built. We had the opportunity to participate in the 3-year retreat. We completed it in 2014 and then moved back to Tucson, where we started teaching the courses, in person to 3-4 people. But someone had asked, who lived in Colorado, can't we do these classes by Skype? Remember Skype? And it's like, Geshe Michael said, okay. So that was the start of my online presence, was with Skype that would cut out, and anyway. But then along came Zoom, and then along came, and then along came. And here we are today, right? Accessing the whole world, as if we're in person. Even though I can't hug you, I can't touch you. All right. So here we are. Logistically, I'm going to begin class at 6 p.m. to the best of my ability to be prompt. Sometimes class will start with, always class will start with our usual prayers and visualization. And then sometimes class will go right into a guided meditation. And sometimes class will be teaching first. This practice module, each class is a combination of guided visualization, meditation, and learning what it's about. So those meditations are review meditations not meditations where we're trying to reach stillness. So don't worry if you don't feel you're a gifted meditator. Okay? These are visualization practices where you're building a storyline that has all these different messages within it. And you're going to learn an entire sequence through the course of this course that then you can use any piece of according to your practice need. So if we're doing our meditation at the beginning of class and you come in late, somebody has to interrupt to let you in, or they're not going to interrupt and not let you in. So don't gamble, come early so that you can be sure to not miss class, please. Now, they are being recorded by, I don't know, almost all of you. So if you do have to miss a class, you have access to the recordings, I believe. Please be sure to listen to the missed class before you come to the next one, because each one builds so that you can be up to speed. I'm going to ask you to hold your questions until the end, unless it's just about, I can't hear, I didn't catch that word, right? Something simple, ask. But I don't want to get distracted into a long discussion to answer a question you might have, but I will make sure that we have time for question and answer, not necessarily in every class, but through the course, right? You'll get your questions answered. So write them down so you don't forget. And like maybe towards the end, put them in chat before we close everything off. Put them in your chat and I can at least look at them. If I know your questions from this class, for instance, I will be able to answer them in next class. Okay. All right, so the basis of all of this is the understanding of the marriage of karma and emptiness. Karma meaning dependent origination, which is a little bit more than just the law of cause and effect. And emptiness meaning the absence of a self nature within anything, anybody, any me, any part of me, which means the availability to be whatever is being experienced. When we marry those two concepts together, we see that it is not only possible, but inevitable that we will become a being who stops all the suffering of every other being, who brings every other being to ultimate happiness. And it seems maybe crazy to suggest that that's inevitable. But the whole process of all the courses is to help us unravel that conundrum, to see the truth for ourselves, to see our own truth for ourselves, right? There's nothing in karma and emptiness that is what will stop suffering, which is why the marriage of karma and emptiness understanding can stop suffering. Only because they are nothing but that marriage also. So what that combination is revealing to us is that everything that happens to us, personally happens to us, is a result of some cause created by what we perceived ourselves thinking, doing, saying towards what we perceived as other. That experience, the awareness of any experience, makes an imprint on our consciousness. We call it mind. And that imprint becomes the cause for some result as that imprint comes into manifestation. There are many, many factors involved in what propels that to happen. But the bottom line then says that how I perceive myself thinking, saying, doing towards others creates the causes for all future experience. It means my choices of interactions with others is the method through which I create my world. Not in the very next moment, but ultimately, we are the creators of our own worlds. So we want to learn what behavior creates the causes for ordinary world, suffering world, and what creates the causes for a world of happiness for everyone. And that's the practice that we're taught, practicing the 6 perfections, practicing avoiding harming others, doing both with a higher goal in mind. The extent to which we have proven to ourselves the truth of what I just said. I don't like the word truth. The reliability of what I just said, when we have proven that to ourselves, we can better act from it. We can better change our behavior from habit to wisdom. So the more we learn about the marriage of karma and emptiness, the more wise become our choices of behavior. And fortunately, we're not left up to ourselves to figure out what's wise behavior and what's not wise behavior. An omniscient being has laid it out for us. And in this tradition, granted us the availability of taking vows, right? Giving us guidelines of behavior that we can pledge ourselves to, which increases the power of those behaviors, as well as giving us the guidance that we need. So all of that's covered in the course of the 15 courses. Our goal is to be able to bring all beings to ultimate happiness. Every one of ourselves is part of all beings. So wanting our own happiness is the starting point for being able to bring everyone to happiness, because ultimately that is our highest happiness, is when everyone in our world is equally happy. It sounds impossible. Marriage of karma and emptiness says it's not just possible, it's inevitable. Okay. So that's our plan, to get to see the big picture of how to bring that about in the next 8 weeks. Twice a week, by the way, not every 2 weeks. So let's take just a little refresher break. And then I'm going to start formal class, right? The way I usually will. Okay. So go ahead and get refreshed, I don't know, a couple of minutes, and then come back.